I was already awake when the phone rang. It had been a long day and a longer night sitting in the sterile, too bright hospital room with our twins, Leo and Mia, hooked up to machines that hummed and beeped like a reminder of how powerless I truly was. My breath caught when I saw the number on the screen. It was Dr. Simone Brooks, the one who'd been overseeing their care. "Mrs. Rios, you need to come down here. Your children. They're in critical condition. We need you to come immediately." I didn't need to hear more. The panic that had been simmering in the back of my mind suddenly roared to the surface. My hands shook as I dropped the phone, adrenaline flooding my veins. Jake was nowhere to be found. Not a word from him. My mind raced with each unanswered call. Was this another one of his important meetings? Was he truly this out of touch, or was it something worse? I ran. The drive to the hospital felt like hours. The air around me was too still, my heart thumping against my chest like it was trying to break free. By the time I arrived, they'd already moved Leo and Mia into ICU. I stood in the hallway, trying to steady my breath, to steady my thoughts. But nothing could prepare me for what was coming next. The sterile white walls were a constant reminder of how easily the perfect life we'd built could come crumbling down. I was supposed to be in control. I was supposed to be able to fix things. But all I could do was stand there, waiting for someone to tell me how bad it was. Dr. Simone stepped out of the room, her expression unreadable. "Mrs. Rios, it's not just food poisoning. This is something else. A substance we've never seen before. Someone did this to them." I felt my knees buckle. It wasn't just an accident. It wasn't random. Someone had poisoned my children. I swallowed hard. Who would do this? Simone glanced over her shoulder, as if the words were heavy enough to crush her. "I don't know, but I'll find out. I'll keep you updated." Her voice trailed off, and I could tell that, like me, she wasn't sure if her words were a comfort or a threat. I reached for my phone. I had to get in touch with Jake. Again, no answer. No answer for hours. I left a message, my voice strained. "Jake, you need to come home. It's Leo and Mia. They're in ICU. Something's wrong. I need you here." But nothing. It was always the same. His excuses, work, meetings, deals, always kept him just a little too far away when it mattered most. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, staring at my phone. How could I explain this to him? How could I make him see that this wasn't just another inconvenience? This was our children. My children. Fighting for their lives. I walked out of the ICU, unable to stay still, the weight of everything pressing down on me. As I reached the elevator, I spotted a nurse from earlier, one of the ones who had been in and out of the room. She was standing off to the side, speaking quietly to another doctor. "Something isn't adding up," I overheard her say. "The symptoms don't match what we thought was the cause. It's too precise, too deliberate." Deliberate. That word hit me like a hammer. I shook my head, forcing myself to focus. I had to figure this out. I had to fix this. I didn't care what it took. I had to protect them. I started to make my way toward the lobby. The air outside was thick with fog, the streetlights casting shadows that danced across the pavement like ghosts. A chill ran through me. This was more than a hospital stay. This was more than a parent's worst nightmare. My hands fumbled as I dialed Jake's number again. My finger hovered over the send button for a moment before I dropped it. Maybe he was the last person I should be calling. I stepped outside and walked down the deserted street, trying to clear my head. I hadn't even noticed how far I'd gone until I stopped in front of a coffee shop. The lights were still on, though the place was closed. I stared at the reflection in the window. I didn't recognize myself. I had always been the calm, collected one, the good wife, the perfect mother. But that was all a lie. The truth was right in front of me, and I had been ignoring it for far too long. Jake was never coming, and the truth about my family was far darker than I had ever imagined. I pulled my phone out again, scrolling through the contacts. His number still glared at me. I'd find out the truth, whether Jake wanted me to or not. Jake is missing. Is this just a coincidence? Or something much darker? I hadn't realized how dark it had gotten until I stepped outside the hospital. The cool night air hit my skin, a sharp contrast to the heat burning in my chest. Leo and Mia were stable for now, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was horribly wrong. The hospital was sterile, bright, but the world outside felt suffocating, too quiet, too empty. It was as if the calm around me didn't match the storm raging in my mind. I pulled my phone from my pocket and dialed Jake again. Still nothing. No texts. No calls. Nothing. I couldn't breathe. Every ring felt like a slap to my face. How could he not be here? How could he be so absent when our children were on the brink of death? I'd known Jake for years, but this was the first time I truly realized I didn't know him at all. The hospital's parking lot was nearly empty, the fluorescent lights casting shadows that seemed to follow me as I made my way to my car. The moment I sat down, I slammed my fist on the steering wheel. This wasn't just about a late-night meeting or some business trip gone wrong. There was more to it, a lot more. It wasn't just the silence between me and Jake that bothered me. It was the silence inside me. I knew the cracks were there, but I'd been too busy keeping the illusion of our perfect life intact. Until now. I slammed the phone down again, staring at the road ahead. There was something I wasn't seeing, something I was missing. I'd let too many things slide over the years, too many small signs. The way he had started disappearing for days at a time, the vague texts, the way the money had started disappearing from our accounts without any clear reason. The excuses, always the excuses. I had ignored it. I had wanted to believe in the man I married. Not anymore. I needed answers. By the time I got home, the house was quiet. The smell of burnt coffee lingered in the kitchen, where I had left the pot running before rushing to the hospital. The emptiness felt suffocating. Our home, once warm and full of laughter, now felt like a shell. I moved mechanically, going through the motions of searching for something, anything, that would make sense of all of this. I opened Jake's study. His desk was exactly the way he liked it. Everything in order, everything pristine. But it wasn't just neat. It was too neat. My heart raced as I noticed the lock on his filing cabinet was slightly out of place. My fingers hovered for a moment before pulling open the drawer. The first thing I found was a pile of bank statements, his mine joint accounts. The numbers jumped out at me like flashing red lights. Over the last month, large withdrawals were made under the guise of business expenses. But then there was something else. The receipts. I flipped through them one by one. Fancy hotels, private dinners, luxurious spa treatments. And then I found the one that made my stomach turn. A receipt for a private jet, booked just last week, signed by Jake. A week when the twins had been in and out of the hospital fighting for their lives. I could feel my hands trembling as I read the details. The destination? Hawaii. Jake was there, on a luxury vacation while our children were dying. A rush of anger and fear surged through me. How could he? How dare he? I shoved the papers aside and pulled open the next drawer. It was empty except for a few random receipts and something else. I froze. A flash drive. My pulse quickened. It was small, unmarked. There was something deliberate about it. I plugged it into the laptop without hesitation, my fingers moving faster than my mind could catch up. What I found nearly knocked the wind out of me. Emails. Dozens of them, all encrypted, all marked with the same name, Chase. There were references to business deals, financial transactions, all with a tone of secrecy. But then I saw it. Make sure she never finds out. No one can know about this. My breath hitched. This wasn't about money. This wasn't just about lying to me. This was something deeper. And if I didn't figure it out now, I might lose everything. The doorbell rang. I snapped my head toward the door, the hairs on the back of my neck standing up. I wasn't expecting anyone. Who would be here at this hour? I moved quickly, my feet barely making a sound on the wooden floor. I peered through the peephole. It was Tommy. I hadn't seen him in years. Not since he and Jake had drifted apart. The door swung open before I could think. "Carla, I need to talk to you." His voice was urgent, low. There was something in his eyes that didn't sit right. I stepped back instinctively. Tommy wasn't a bad guy, but something about his presence felt off. "Come in," I said, my voice tight. He glanced around as he entered, his face drawn. "I know you're looking into Jake," he said, eyes flickering toward the desk where I had just left the flash drive. "You need to be careful." The words hit me like a slap. My mind raced, trying to catch up. What was he talking about? "You're already in too deep. You don't know what you're dealing with," Tommy added, his voice low. He hesitated before continuing. "Jake's not just involved in something shady, Carla. He's tangled in something dangerous. And it's not just about the money." My heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Tommy ran a hand through his hair, pacing in frustration. "Look, I can't tell you everything, but I'll tell you this much. Jake didn't just leave because of work. He left because they made him leave. He's tied up with people who don't play by the rules. And they don't care about family. They care about power, control, and money. If you don't stop digging, they'll come after you. And they'll come after the kids." I could feel the ground shift beneath my feet. The walls around me closed in. Jake's not just lying about the trip. He's hiding something much worse. I couldn't breathe. The more I pieced together, the less sense it made. The receipts, the hidden flash drive, Tommy's cryptic warning, they all pointed to something far more dangerous than I had imagined. The veil that I had allowed to fall over my marriage, over my family, was being ripped away piece by piece, exposing a web of lies so tangled I didn't know where to start untangling it. Jake had always been elusive, but I'd chalked it up to the pressures of his job. I told myself it was just business, just one more project, one more deal. But this wasn't just business. This was something darker, something I wasn't ready for. I sat down at the kitchen table, the faint hum of the refrigerator the only sound. The house felt empty, even though I knew my children were asleep upstairs, clinging to life in a sterile hospital room. I shouldn't have felt safe in this house, but the silence wrapped around me like a blanket. It was suffocating. The files on my laptop blinked at me, waiting for my attention. I pulled the flash drive from Jake's desk and inserted it again. There had to be something more, something that would explain it all. The encrypted emails were just the beginning. I scanned through more transactions, money laundering schemes, coded messages, confidential business deals. But then I saw something that made my stomach lurch. Chase. The name had appeared in every transaction. I knew it wasn't a coincidence. It had to be the same Chase who Tommy had warned me about. But the deeper I dug, the more I realized Chase wasn't just a business partner. He was the key. As I clicked through more documents, the words blurred together. It felt like the walls were closing in. I had only one question now. How far did Jake's betrayal go? I grabbed my phone, dialing Tommy's number. The phone rang twice before he picked up. "Carla, what's going on?" "I found him. Chase. Jake and him. They're running something far worse than I thought. But I need to know everything." "I can't," my voice faltered. I had no one else to turn to. Tommy had warned me, but I was too deep now and I couldn't back out. "I need to know who Chase is, what this is all about." "Carla," Tommy's voice wavered. "You don't get it. Chase isn't just another partner. He's the kind of guy who doesn't let anyone stand in his way. If Jake's involved with him, you're not just dealing with business. You're dealing with organized crime. And they know about you." The words hit me like a freight train. I wasn't just tangled in Jake's lies. I was wrapped in something far bigger than I could imagine. A chill ran down my spine. "You think they know I'm digging?" "They know," Tommy confirmed. "And they won't stop until they get what they want." I couldn't process what Tommy was telling me. My hands shook as I stared at the documents in front of me. I had no idea how deep this ran. I thought I was just trying to figure out why my husband wasn't there when our children needed him. Now, I was staring into the abyss of something far more dangerous. "I'll find a way to get you the information you need," Tommy added, his voice steady. But I could hear the fear in it. "But you need to be careful. You can't trust anyone right now." I hung up the phone without another word. The silence that followed was suffocating. The weight of everything I had uncovered was pressing down on me. I couldn't think straight. I needed a plan, but I didn't know where to start. I turned my attention back to the laptop. The more I sifted through the files, the clearer it became that Jake's absence was no accident. This wasn't a business trip. It wasn't a series of unfortunate events. This was orchestrated. I clicked on one final email, my hands trembling. It was from Jake himself, written in a coded language I didn't understand at first, but something about it caught my eye. "The kids can't be in the way anymore. We need to move quickly. Get them out of the picture." The blood drained from my face. I reread the sentence, the implications settling in. They weren't talking about some financial transaction. They were talking about Leo and Mia. I slammed the laptop shut, panic bubbling up inside me. Get them out of the picture. It could mean anything. It could mean they were a threat, or worse, they were being targeted. I couldn't just sit here anymore. I had to find Jake, confront him, end this. But how? I grabbed my coat and headed out the door. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I had to act fast. I had no idea who I could trust anymore. I got into my car, the engine roaring to life, the headlights illuminating the empty street ahead of me. My mind raced. I needed more answers. I needed to find Jake before it was too late. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Every streetlight felt like an interrogation. Every passing car a silent observer. But I couldn't stop. I had to find him. I had to find the truth. My phone buzzed in my pocket, breaking my thoughts. I pulled over and checked the screen. A message from Tommy. "Don't go to him alone. They know you're coming." But it was too late. I stepped on the gas, my heart pounding as I sped down the dark road. I had no idea who I could trust anymore. But I knew one thing for sure. Jake had already taken everything from me. And I wasn't going to let him take my children too. Jake's betrayal goes deeper than I could have ever imagined. I won't let him get away with this. Not anymore. The city lights outside blurred into a mix of yellow and red streaks as I drove, each passing second another beat in the mounting pressure inside me. I couldn't stop thinking about what Tommy had said. "They know you're coming," he had warned. The weight of his words pressed against my chest, each breath coming shorter than the last. The truth I'd been desperately trying to uncover was slipping through my fingers like water. Jake chased the money, nothing added up. And now, Leo and Mia's lives hung in the balance. I should have been there for them. I should have been in the hospital, fighting for their lives, not out here chasing ghosts. I glanced at the rearview mirror, the headlights from a car following too closely behind me. Maybe it was just another late-night driver. But the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Every streetlight felt like an accusation. My pulse quickened. I wasn't alone. I couldn't be. My phone buzzed. I snatched it up, heart pounding. It was a message from Tommy. "Get out of the car. Now." I slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching as I jerked the wheel to the right, pulling into a dark alleyway. The car behind me followed, its headlights blinding in the rearview. It was them, whoever they were. Tommy was right. They were watching. I ducked down, the world outside falling into a suffocating silence. My fingers trembled as I typed a quick reply. "Who's following me?" I didn't wait for his answer. I shoved my phone back in my bag and reached for the door handle, but a sharp knock on the window made my heart stop. I froze, the shadow of a man blocking the light from the alleyway. I didn't need to see his face to know he wasn't here to help. The man tapped again, this time harder, more insistent. I didn't open the window. I couldn't. I couldn't let him in. I had no choice. I floored the gas pedal, the tires spinning in a high-pitched scream as I sped down the alley, narrowly avoiding a trash can. The car behind me didn't hesitate. It followed. Every turn I made, it was there like a shadow, too close for comfort. My mind raced. Who were they? Who were Jake and Chase involved with? I could barely keep my hand steady as I drove, my grip tightening on the wheel. The alley stretched endlessly before me, but the chase was never-ending. I couldn't escape. Not yet. I looked back one more time. The car was still there, too close. I didn't know what I was running from. I just knew I had to keep moving. Suddenly, the engine sputtered. The car jolted. No, this couldn't be happening. I cursed under my breath, trying to restart it, but the dashboard went dark. My stomach dropped. I wasn't going anywhere. The car behind me finally pulled alongside, blocking my only way out. The door opened before I could even react, and a man stepped out, his face covered in shadow. "Get out of the car!" His voice was low, controlled. He wasn't asking. Now. I swallowed hard. My heart pounded in my ears. I knew what this was. I'd seen enough crime dramas to know what happened next. I opened the door slowly, my hand shaking. I had no weapon, no backup, no plan, just the raw desperation in my gut. "Who are you?" I forced myself to ask, even though the words came out hoarse, weak. The man didn't answer. Instead, he reached for me, his fingers brushing the side of my arm. The cold touch of his hand made me flinch, but I didn't pull away. "You're in too deep, lady," he said, "and your husband's not going to save you." I felt my stomach drop. "Jake." The words hung in the air between us, like poison. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Why are you doing this?" The man stepped back, motioning to the car behind him. Another figure emerged. It was Tommy. I blinked in disbelief. What the hell was going on? Tommy walked toward me, his face unreadable. He glanced at the man who was still watching me, then back at me. "Carla, they know you're looking. They know you found everything. You have to stop now before it's too late." "What are you talking about? You've been working with them." The shock in my voice hit me harder than anything else. Tommy hesitated. "No, it's not like that. But Jake, he's in way too deep. And now you are too. You can't fight this. You don't have the strength." I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear any more excuses or half-truths. "How much do you really know about Jake?" Tommy's voice dropped, his gaze unwavering. "You think this is just about the money? This is bigger than that. And if you keep digging, you're going to find yourself in the ground with them." I felt the ground beneath me give way, my legs weak. Everything I'd uncovered, everything I'd believed, it was all a lie. I wasn't just uncovering Jake's secrets. I was stumbling upon a dangerous web of lies. "You think you're the only one being watched? Think again." Tommy's voice was low, urgent. "You're in over your head." I couldn't process it all at once. I couldn't breathe. But one thing was clear. I was being dragged into something I couldn't escape. Suddenly, the distant hum of sirens reached my ears. I turned my head, the flashing lights illuminating the dark street. The man who had been standing by my car glanced back at Tommy, his expression unreadable. "Time's up," Tommy muttered. "We need to move now." Before I could react, Tommy grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the shadowed alleyway, leaving the man behind. I didn't know who to trust anymore. But I knew one thing. Jake had put me in the line of fire, and now the fire was closing in. Jake never planned to protect me. He left me to burn. I couldn't trust my own thoughts. The events had spun so fast in the past few hours. My head ached from trying to catch up. I had been trying to make sense of the mess Jake had left behind. But every thread I pulled had only revealed deeper, darker secrets. Tommy's words echoed in my mind. "They know you're coming." I could feel it, the weight of someone or something watching me. The sudden shift in atmosphere had been like a switch, an unnatural tension that crept into every corner of my life. The walls felt like they were closing in on me. I needed answers. The alleyway had been a blur. Tommy had led me through shadowed streets, his grip tight on my arm as though he were afraid someone might grab me, pull me into the darkness. I had asked him again about Jake, but each time I'd looked to him for clarity, I found only more questions. I pulled up to a run-down building near the edge of town. Something about the place didn't sit right. The windows were boarded up, the entrance guarded by a man standing as still as stone. Tommy hadn't said much about where we were going, but I had an inkling. "Stay close," Tommy muttered, his voice tight, and for the first time since I'd met him, I saw real fear in his eyes. I didn't want to be here, but there was no going back. Not now. I wasn't about to let Jake get away with this. Tommy pushed open the door and we stepped inside. The place reeked of stale air, damp wood, and the faint scent of something burnt. My feet crunched over broken glass as I moved further in, the dim lights flickering above us. It felt like a scene straight out of a movie, except this wasn't make-believe. This was real. "Where are we?" I demanded. Tommy stopped and turned to face me. "Jake's been hiding things that go beyond money." "Beyond money?" I repeated, my heart pounding. Before he could answer, a figure appeared from the shadows, stepping into the light. It was a woman, tall and imposing, her features hidden beneath a dark hood. My pulse raced. I didn't know who she was, but something about her presence made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. "You must be Carla," she said, her voice smooth and cold, like steel under silk. "We've been expecting you." I took a step back. "What do you mean, expecting me?" Tommy looked at her nervously, but he didn't speak. The woman took a few steps closer, her shoes clicking on the concrete. Her eyes never left mine. "You're in deeper than you think," she said. "And Jake? He's not the man you thought he was." My throat tightened. I wanted to scream, demand answers, but I held it in. "Who are you?" I asked. "Why are you following me? What is Jake really involved in?" The woman gave a dry chuckle, as though the answer was obvious. "Jake's been working with us for a while. You don't get involved in this kind of business unless you're willing to do anything to stay on top." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "And he's not the only one." I stared at her, trying to process her words. "Business? What business?" She smiled, but it wasn't a smile at all. It was predatory. "That's for you to find out. But be warned, the deeper you dig, the more you'll lose. And we're not talking about money." I felt a cold chill crawl up my spine. This wasn't just about a missing husband. This wasn't about betrayal. This was about something far more dangerous. And now I was part of it. I had no choice. "Why me?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Why involve me in this?" The woman stepped forward, her eyes piercing through me. "Because you're already in too deep. You're digging where you shouldn't be. Jake is in our way. And now so are you." My heart skipped a beat. "What does that mean?" "It means," she said softly, her voice like a cold breeze, "you're about to lose everything. You just don't know it yet." Suddenly, there was a loud bang, followed by the sound of hurried footsteps. Tommy's face went pale, and I saw him glance nervously toward the back of the room. My instincts kicked in. I wasn't about to stay here and wait for whatever they had planned for me. I turned, moving swiftly toward the door, but the woman blocked my way. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," she warned, her voice deadly calm. Tommy stepped forward, grabbing my arm. "Carla, you don't know what you're getting into. You have to listen to her." I yanked my arm out of his grip. "Let me go, Tommy." The woman raised a hand. "You think you can escape this? You're already part of the game. There's no going back." I glanced around the room, desperate for a way out. My mind was a blur, the fear now clawing at my chest. Every step I took seemed to bring me closer to the truth, but farther from any safety. The shadows felt like they were closing in. Tommy's voice was low, pleading now. Carla, please. Just listen to her. You're in danger. I shook my head. I'm not going to sit here and let you pull me deeper into this mess. I need to find my kids. And I need to find Jake. The woman's eyes narrowed. You'll find him, but not in the way you expect. Without another word, I pushed past them both and ran for the door. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't breathe. As I stepped out into the cold night air, the city stretched before me, but everything felt different. The streets weren't the same. The world didn't feel the same. I had just walked into a nightmare, and I wasn't sure if I'd make it out alive. Jake's game was never just about money, and now it's my game too. I was on the edge, standing at the precipice of everything I had ever known, my world crumbling under the weight of the truth. The chase, the lies, the betrayal, it was all coming to a head now. And as I stood in the middle of the storm, the realization hit me like a cold slap to the face. This wasn't just about Jake. It wasn't just about the money or the secrets, or the power plays that had destroyed everything I once believed in. It was about survival, about reclaiming something I had lost, myself. I stood at the foot of the courthouse steps, my body stiff with anxiety. The sound of hurried footsteps echoed in the distance, but all I could hear was my own breathing. One step forward and I would be inside. One step and everything would change. I had spent months chasing shadows, trusting people who were out to destroy me, out to destroy everything I had worked for. And now I was here for one reason, justice, for my children, for the truth. But it wasn't going to be easy. Nothing ever was. The doors to the courtroom slammed shut behind me, a finality I hadn't prepared for. It was like entering another world, a world where nothing mattered except what was about to unfold. My eyes scanned the room, my heart hammering in my chest. Jake's face was stone cold, his eyes dark as ever. His lawyer stood beside him, tall, confident, but I saw the sweat on his brow. This wasn't a case they could easily win. Not this time. Not when everything had unraveled. My mind flashed back to the alleyway, the moment I had decided to walk away from the danger. It felt like a lifetime ago. I wasn't the same person who had walked into that alley. I wasn't the same person who had put her trust in Jake and watched him burn it all to the ground. Carla Davis, the judge called, snapping me back to the present. Please step forward. I took a deep breath and walked up to the stand. The weight of the room pressed down on me as I faced everyone, my enemies, my past, my future. And yet I didn't feel fear. Not anymore. I had already fought my demons. The battle in this room was just the last one. You've made your case, the judge said, glancing at the evidence presented. It seems we have enough to move forward. I met Jake's eyes across the room, and for the first time in years I didn't feel hatred. Just a deep, aching sorrow. He wasn't the man I had loved. He was the man who had betrayed me, who had sacrificed our family for his own ambitions. He didn't deserve forgiveness, but I had no more tears left to shed for him. You've been playing a dangerous game, Jake, I said, my voice cutting through the tension like a knife. But I'm done. I'm done letting you control my life, letting you control my children's lives. This is over. The silence that followed was deafening. The truth hung in the air, undeniable and suffocating. I want you to know something, Jake, I continued, my eyes not leaving his. All your secrets, all your lies, none of it matters now. You've lost everything. Jake's face twisted. I could see the panic in his eyes now, the realization that he wasn't going to win. But it was too late. The evidence was overwhelming. The investigation had gone deeper than even I had anticipated. The money trail, the lies about his involvement with dangerous people, it all came to light. And I had the proof. As the prosecutor began reading the charges, my mind flashed back to the last few weeks. The late nights spent poring over files, the hours spent working with investigators, the endless calls and threats. It had all led to this moment. But even now, as the courtroom buzzed with the energy of the impending verdict, I didn't feel a sense of victory. I felt empty. Sometimes the greatest victories don't come from winning, I thought, remembering something someone had once told me. Sometimes it's about knowing when to walk away. And in that moment, I knew. I had already won. The truth had been revealed, the lies exposed, and Jake was no longer a part of my world. As the judge sentenced Jake to prison, the weight in my chest lifted, but the peace I expected didn't come. There was still the matter of my children, the pain of their illness, the battle I had fought alone for so long. Nothing would ever erase that. I stood up from the stand, my heart heavy with the burden of all I had lost. But I wasn't broken. I couldn't be. Not anymore. As I walked out of the courtroom, the weight of the world was still on my shoulders, but I was no longer running. I had made it through. The world outside was bright and blinding, the sun high in the sky. It was a new day, a fresh start. But it wasn't just for me. It was for my children. For them, I would rebuild piece by piece. I would find a way to make it right. People think revenge is sweet, I had once heard someone say, but it's not. Justice, however, justice can heal wounds you didn't even know you had. And in that moment, I realized the truth of those words. Justice wasn't about destroying someone else's life. It was about reclaiming your own. It was about standing tall, no matter how much the world tried to tear you down. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living. And that was all that mattered.